Hi, this session is on our practice test, so we'll be going through all the questions on the practice test, and you can fast forward to the questions that you needed help on, but please make sure that you correct everything. So this is our first section, most of them multiple choice, so questions 1, 2 and 3 I'm doing first. So question 1 asks us to simplify. So we can see the operation is multiplication, so all we got to do is go 5 times 2 is 10, and then there are no variables that are the same, so no adding powers, just we have x, y, and z. And that's it. And this multiple choice question, the answer would be A. All right, number 2, we can see we have one of the index laws that involves brackets and powers. And we know that if we have a power outside the bracket, we multiply it with the power or powers inside the bracket. In this case, there is 1 power 2. So 2 times 3 is 6. So I end up with x to the power of 6 over x to the power of 10. Now we don't stop there because we can see we have the same base on top and bottom. So I have 6 x's on top and 10 on the bottom. And I cross off my smallest amount, it's gone. It's really a 1. And if you're wondering why it's a 1, remember, if I take away 6 from the top, 6 take away 6 is what? It's 0. And anything to the power of 0 is 1. Okay? And bottom, do the same thing. 10 take away 6 is 4. So we're left with a 1 on top over x to the power of 4. And it's important this one is visible, okay? So make sure it's there. Number 3, have a look at our operation. We've got subtraction. There is no multiplication, so our j will stay the same, but we can add or subtract like terms. So how many j's do we have here? We've got there's a minus 3j there and a minus 10j there. So what's minus 10 minus 3? That's minus 13, and we have minus 13j. Easy. And I think that one had that answer, number 3, is C, minus 13j. Okay, with question 4, we're still simplifying. And once again, we've got subtraction and addition. There is no multiplication, so our variables will be staying the same. We just add or subtract like terms. So I'll circle to the left to clearly see what's negative and what's positive. And I'll start. So with my A, I've got an A here and another A there. So they're the same thing, they're like terms. So 9 plus that 1, 9 plus 1 is 10, but 10A. And my A is taken care of. And B, I've got minus 6 minus a 1B. Minus 6 minus 1 is minus 7, and it's minus 7B. And this one, for question 4, the answer would have been D. Okay, number 5. Number 5, there's a mistake in this question, so none of the answers were correct. So we'll do the correct answer. Now, these brackets don't have to be there. They're trying to trick you. There is no power out here. So the first step is 3c to the power of 4 stays the same. There is a power 1 here, but we know 1 times 4 and 1 times that 1 won't change anything. It's the same thing. But we have times, but here we've got a power 3. And we know with this index law, every power in the bracket is multiplied with a power outside. And don't forget that 2 has a power 1 there. So we have 3 times 3, but also 3 times that power 1. Okay, so if you went 2 times 3 to give you 6, 2 is not a power. 2 is a whole number. Its power is 1. So we end up with 2 to the power of 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, and now we evaluate our powers, which means 2 to the power of 3. What is the actual number? 2 to the power of 3 is 8, and we've got d to the power of 9. And now this multiplication symbol will make it invisible. But first, multiply our numbers. 3 times 8 is simply 24. And then c to the power of 4, there's no c's on this side, so it stays the same, and no d's on this side, so it stays the same. And that should have been your answer. Okay, with our next 2 questions, now here we notice the power is 0, and we know that index law states that anything to the power of 0 is 1. Now, be very careful, that 7 is not to the power of 0, that 7 has an invisible power 1. So all we have here is 7 times d to the power of 0. d to the power of 0, the whole thing is 1, and so 7 times 1 is just 7. So your answer should have been 7. All right, so next question. we once again have a brackets and a power, so everything is multiplied by that power 3. There's a 1 there, times the 3 by 3, and also the 7 has a power 1. So we end up with 7 to the power of 3, a to the power of 3, 3 times 3 is 9, a to the power of 9, and b to the power of 3. Now, because 7 to the power of 3 is not a very large number, evaluate the number. Show the value. So what's 7 times 7 times 7? So we end up with 343, a to the power of 9, and b to the power of 3. And that's your answer. Okay, with this question here, it's asking us for the highest common factor of these two terms. We're basically factorizing, okay? So imagine we had a plus in the middle and so on. But we're just going to work out what's the highest common factor. So start with your numbers. So 16 and 24. What's the highest factor of 16 and 24? It's not 2, it's not 4, it's going to be 8. Okay, so the highest factor of 16 and 24 is 8, because 16 divided by 8 is 2, 24 divided by 8 is 3. And we can't simplify 2 and 3 any further. And now with our variables, how many can we take out? So how many r's do we have here? We've got 2 r's there and 1 r there. So we can take out our smallest amount. So 1 r is the highest factor. Okay? And s here and 2 s's there. How many s's can I take out? I can take out 1 s, my smallest amount. And I've got 1 t here and 1 t there. Because we have the same amount, we can just take out 1 t, and that will be both gone. And that's it. That's your answer. It's the highest common factor. And that answer is A for that question. All right, our next two questions ask us to factorize. So we know factorizing is the opposite of expanding. So our first step is get our brackets ready, take away in the middle, and let's go. So I've got my numbers 36 and 48. The highest factor of 36 and 48, you can start with 2, but we know 2 isn't the highest factor. And I'm pretty sure, knowing my timetables, it's 12. Let's try that. So 36 divided by 12 is 3, and 48 divided by 12 is 4. 3 and 4 cannot be simplified any further. So the highest factor was 12, and I'll put it outside. And 3 and 4 are my leftovers. So 3 on this side and 4 on that side. And now I've got a j here. There is no j on this side, so I can't take it out. So the j is just stuck there. So I didn't have to leave a big space for this one. So I'll put my 12 a bit closer. And that's it. So the answer for that one was 9A. So you should have had A for that one. All right, number 10. Once again, factorizing. So get our brackets ready and a plus in the middle. We have 56 and 49. The factor that I can think of is 7. So I'll try dividing them by 7. 56 divided by 7 is 8. 49 divided by 7 is 7. 8 and 7 cannot be simplified further, so the highest factor was 7. And 8 and 7 are my leftovers. Next, I have 4k's on this side, and I have 1k on that side. So I'll take out my smallest amount. It's gone, it's a 1. So I've taken out 1k. 4 take away 1 is 3. So on this side, I'm left with k to the power of 3. Okay, and now we can cross that off. We've done that, and now we've got 3 L's here and 4 L's there. My smallest amount is 3 L's, so I'll take out 3 L's, and 4 take away 3 is just 1 L. So there's just 1 L sitting there, and the power can be invisible. And that's it. So it looks like our answer for this one was B. So you should have had 10B circled. Yeah. Our next two questions we have to expand and also perhaps simplify where possible. So expanding, we know there's an invisible times next to the bracket. So in this case, we've got 5 times 2g and 5 times 5h. Now, if you can do this mentally, that's great. So remember that 5h is actually a negative 5h. But if you want to show working out, you can. So 5 times 2g, well, 5 times 2 is 10, and the g just sits there. I'll bring my minus down, and then 5 times 5h, 5 times 5 is 25, and the h just sits there. Now, there's nothing else I can simplify. G and h are not like terms, so for question 11, you should have had B as your circled answer. All right, 12. Now be careful, we've got a negative 4g, so just be careful with your negatives and positives. So we're going to have negative 4g times 3g, and negative 4g times this 5h. Now you can see what's going to happen. That 5h is negative, so two negatives will make a positive, okay? So you can show this sort of step by step. So we've got minus 4g. So if you can do this mentally, go ahead. I'm going to do it using working out. So minus 4g times a positive 3g in one bracket. There's a takeaway here, so takeaway. And then my next bracket, minus 4g again times 5h. Okay, don't write minus 5h. I've put the minus out here because I'm showing some working out. And now in this bracket, I've got minus 4 times a positive 3. That's minus 12. And g times g, we add the powers of g. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So we have minus 12g squared. And then there's a takeaway that we write down, takeaway. In these brackets, we have minus 4 times a positive 5. So minus 4 times 5 is minus 20. And g times h is just gh. So the final step is now these two negatives will make a positive. So we end up with minus 12 g squared plus 20 gh. Now hopefully that's an answer. Minus 12g squared. Yeah, so it looks like the answer for this one was also B. So you should have circled B for that question. So please be careful with your negatives. Our next question, once again, we have to expand and then simplify where possible. So in this case, we've got two brackets. So we expand each one. Now be careful, this 5 here, when you get to year 9, year 10 level, sometimes there's a negative here. So keep in mind that 5 is a positive 5. So positive 5 times 6 and positive 5 times 7i. So now we'll do this side first. 2 times 3j is going to be 6j. 2 times a minus 6 will make a minus 12. So I'm doing this one mentally. Hopefully you're at a stage where you can sort of do it mentally. All right, and here we've got positive 5 times 6 will be a positive 30. So we've got plus 30. And then 5 times a positive 7i. 5 times 7 is positive 35. And the I just sits there. Oh, and I just realized this, whoops, isn't a J, it's an I as well. So this should be an I. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we have to simplify what we can. So I can circle to the left, but most of it is positive, but I'll just circle anyway so it's more clear to me. Minus 12, and that's a 6i. All right, so adding our like terms, I've got 6i here and positive 35i here. So 6 plus 35 is 41, but I. And then our numbers, we've got minus 12 plus 30. So once again, one's a negative, one's a positive. So 30, take away 12. And sorry, I just realized this is supposed to be positive. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. So this should be a positive 12. I do apologize. So we have 12 plus 30, which is positive 42. So that should have been the answer. Okay, you may have realized I made that mistake. So, and the answer in this case, that the multiple choice is, looks like it's D. All right. So our next two questions, once again, we have to simplify. Now, with question 14, if you went 8 to the power of 5, like 8 times 8 times 8, and the same on the bottom, that's doing it the long way. And you have to be able to use your index law skills. And that is, I've got 8 5s on top and 8 7s on the bottom. Just like imagine I had 8 to the power of 5 over 8 to the power of 7. Same sort of thing. So I can take away my smallest amount, which is just 1 now. 7 take away 5 is 2. So I'm left with 1 over 8 to the power of 2. Now, if you stop there, you've done the right thing, but maybe we can evaluate it. What's 8 times 8? 8 times 8 is 64. And that should have been your final answer. And now number 15, this is just your basic fraction skills. To add fractions or subtract, we know we have to have the same denominator. So your first step is, can we make our 2 into a 6? Yes, we can. 2 times 3 gives me 6. What I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. So we end up with 3 over 6 plus 5 over 6. And that extra step that's important when we have algebra and fractions, and that is I can combine them on the same denominator, and 3 plus 5 is 8. Now, don't stop there. Your next step is you can simplify, and it's also an improper fraction, which means the bigger number is on top. So because we have no algebra, we can turn this into a mixed fraction. So I'll simplify it first. I can divide them both by 2. So I have 4 over 3. And now 3 into 4 can fit one whole time. Remainder 1 over 3. And that's it. So our next two questions involve, once again, our fraction skills. We have addition here, so we have to first make our denominators the same. You notice we have algebra on top, but that doesn't matter. So once again, I'll turn my 2 into a 6 by multiplying it by 3. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And we know x times 3 is just 3x. So I'm going to combine them on the same denominator. So I have 6, and x times 3 is 3x, plus in the middle, 5x. And now because x and x are like terms, they're the same thing, I'll continue it up here. 3x plus 5x is 8x over 6. Now don't stop there. Because there is no plus or take away separating 8 and x, we can simplify the 8 and 6. So 8 and 6, if we divide them both by 2, we end up with 4x over 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that's it. Don't turn this into a mixed fraction. Because we have x here, there's algebra in there, we stop there. Now with 17, we have multiplication, and we can simplify anything from top and bottom. So my first step is I've got a 10 up here and a 10 there, it's gone. We know it's really a 1, we just divide it by 10. I can also see a 7 and 49. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 49 divided by 7 is 7. And 9 and 3, that's gone. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So I'm left with 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 7 is 21. Over, down here I've got 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. Now that 1 can be invisible, so your final answer should have just been 21. Okay, our next two questions involve fraction and division. So with 18, the first thing I see is an F on top and F on the bottom. It's the same amount, so it is just cancelled out, gone. Easy. And then 12 and 36, so I'm left with 12 and 36. You can just put this straight into your calculator and it will simplify it for you. Please make sure you know how to do that. Some models have the boxes like this. You put your numbers in. Others have that A and then B over C button. Okay, so you have to know how to use those buttons. Ask somebody if you don't know. All right, and 12 and 36, I can divide them both by 12. Divide it by 12. So we have 1 over 3. So this one was a multiple choice one. The answer you should have had circled was E. Now 19, we should be experts at this by now. This is just like factorizing. All right, so we've got 2 and 4, simplifies to a half. 2 A's on top, 1 on the bottom, smallest amount goes. I'm left with 1A on top. 5 B's on top, 3 on the bottom, smallest amount goes. 5 take away 3 is 2, so B squared on top, or 2B's. Now we've got a C here, none on the bottom, so C is stuck there. A D on the bottom, none on top, and D is stuck there. And there's your answer. That 1 can be invisible, and that's how easy that was. With 20, we are using substitution. So it says, if X is 2 and Y is 6, what do we end up with? Nice and easy. So we got 8 times Y, but Y is 6. I will substitute with brackets so we don't forget that important rule. In this case, it may not make a difference, but it's important to not forget that. So take away, and then I've got 2 times X. So 2 times X is 2. Okay, so there's an invisible times here. And then multiplication first. 8 times 6 is 48. Minus 2 times 2 is 4. 48 minus 4 is simply 44. And we're done. So that answer was B. Now this question here is just as easy. Don't be scared of negatives, but also don't forget that there's a negative here. So if X is 6, so I'll substitute in my brackets, X is 6. Now there's a takeaway here already in the question, so I'll put it down straight away. And y is what? Y is -2. Okay, so I substituted with brackets, so there's another bracket outside. You don't have to, but just to get into the habit. So imagine the brackets weren't there, and you can see what happens. The two negatives now will make a positive. They're sitting together. And so in the brackets, I have to work that out first, and 6 plus 2 is 8. And your final step, what's in between the brackets and the -3? Times. What's -3 times 8? It is -24. And that's your answer. So this one was also B as well. I think every question the answer is B, but anyway. With our next question, just like imagine we had algebra. If you see the same base on the bottom and top, you can simplify your index laws. If you went 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 5 and so on, you're doing it the long way and you're not showing that important skill that you know how to simplify using the index laws. So we've got a fraction and there's times in between our numbers, which is fine. So all we're going to do is take away our smallest amount. I've got 5 2's on top and 7 on the bottom. So that's gone. It's a 1. 7 take away 5 is just 2. So I've got 2 squared on the bottom. And here, 6 5's on top, 5 on the bottom. Smallest amount is gone, which is really a 1. And 6 take away 5 is a 1. So I'm left with 5 on top, or 5 to the power of 1, which is invisible, over 2 squared. Now, of course, we don't stop there. What is 2 squared? 2 times 2 is 4, so we end up with 5 over 4. And I can turn this into a mixed fraction. 4 into 5 can fit once, and there's one remainder over 4. Okay, so that should have been your final answer. And I want you to do it this way. Don't do it the long way. All right, this is the last question for the first section. So I might stop here and then do another video for the second section. So once again, we're multiplying fractions. So simplify anything on top and bottom. The first thing I see is a B there and a B there. They're gone. 2 and 4, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And of course, I've got 2 x's up here and 1 down there. Smallest amount is gone. 2 take away 1 is just 1. So I'm left with 1 times x times 1 is just x on top, over, that's just a 1. 1 times 2 is 2. And that's your final answer. Okay, so hopefully you didn't find that too tricky. And remember, your test is basically the same as this. I'll just change your numbers around.